This is Ken, the Digital Ham. In this video we're going to take a look at Fedora Linux to see if it's suitable for use in the ham shack. We'll be looking at the pros and cons. So let's get to it. Let's start with a visit to the website for Fedora. If you just type in Fedora, you'll wind up with a choice here, and we want to go to the main website, so we'll choose the Fedora.org, and it tells you that it's free and open source software, and it's primarily targeted for business because it's a test base for Red Hat Linux. So you get the latest and greatest, and then if it's viable, it winds up in the commercial product, Red Hat Linux. And if you want something other than their main distribution, you have to go to Fedora Spins. They have the KDE, the XFCE desktop, LXQT desktop, the Mate desktop, the Cinnamon desktop, which you find in Linux Mint, and the LXDE desktop. And then they have a couple I don't know about. The SOAS desktop, never tried that, don't know what it is. And then they have the i3 Tiling Window Manager, which is a different way of operating. We're going to download the official edition, the one that is their main target or their main emphasis. It uses the GNOME desktop, and we're going to download it here. You might notice that they also have one that'll run on the Raspberry Pi. So maybe we'll take a look at the end of that running on a Raspberry Pi. So first thing we need to do is download it. I already have this running on my main computer. I'm going to be installing this on a program called Boxes, which is part of the GNOME Software Center. And I need to go down. I've downloaded the file, and I'm going to be going out to my downloads, and when you see that, you'll see I do a lot of playing around with different distros. But I'm going to be installing the workstation here in a virtual machine so that we can see the install process. If you're not interested in that, you may want to skip ahead. But essentially what I'm doing here is I have an old computer that has lots of CPU cores. It has 16, so I can, and it also has 32 gigabytes of RAM. So I give it about 8 gigabytes of, it's a little tricky here. It doesn't really matter if you get it exactly right, but I give it around 8 gigabytes of memory, and then about a 30 gigabyte hard drive, and then Boxes just goes ahead and starts up the install process. I think the theory of GNOME is, or part of the theory is that things need to be simple and easy to do. I use other virtual machine software, and none of it is as simple as this. This is just foolproof in terms of ease of use. I have run into problems in the past with some things not working, and toward the end of this video you'll see I struggled a little bit with Boxes. And Fedora is starting up a little slow in Boxes here, but this is the Fedora desktop, and we're going to jump right in and install it to the hard drive. And this installation process is unique, I think, to Fedora. I don't recall encountering it on any of the other distros. Fedora uses a different package management system and a different installer, as you see, but they're all pretty much the same. There's one little tricky part. It has identified my keyboard as US, and time and date. It even picked up where I'm at, or at least my time zone. Now this looks like everything is checked, doesn't it? it's not going to work if I went ahead and checked and chose that. I have to actually check it and then uncheck it and then go ahead and use it. If you are using a hard drive that already has sectors and things, you're going to have to choose to reclaim disk space and delete the stuff that's there. But since I'm in a virtual machine, all I had to do was check that twice. Then you kind of wait around. If this part doesn't work, you can keep going back until that red check goes away. And then you can go ahead and install the operating system. This is one of those operations where you install the software first, then you create your username and your password. So you've wiped out everything. By the way, it warns you that you're going to erase everything. And that is true. So I'm going to pause the video now, and we'll pick it back up when it is done installing. This length of time it takes to install distros depends a lot on your hardware and other factors, and some people seem to think it's a big deal if one takes longer than the other, but my feeling is you don't do this every day. So if it takes a few minutes longer on one distro than another, it really doesn't matter. What you're looking for is a good, solid operating system. But here we are up at the finish installation, and you just click, I'm going to click on it here. It's going to tell me to pull out the install media and restart, and that's what we're going to be doing. And then we'll get a chance to look at the desktop. One thing that happens with boxes is you don't restart. It doesn't automatically restart. So that's what I'm doing here is I'm restarting Fedora. It did shut down properly, and it does resize to my monitor correctly. During part of this, I'm going to be fighting a little bit with my mouse. So if my mouse jumps around, that's why. You can, when you're doing setup here, you can choose whether you want location services on or problem reporting. This is where we can enable third-party repositories. We want to do that because Fedora limits the amount of software that it allows you to download without doing that. I'm going to put in my full name here. You notice I skipped past setting up accounts because I'm on a virtual machine. And you can see I'm fighting with the mouse here. So my apologies. Now you want to type in a strong and complicated password. And now I'm trying to get the next. Now we're all done starting, and we're going to start. And to get showing things, you just hit the meta key, which is the Windows key. We're running GNOME 41. That's the very latest. So we're going to take a tour here. And so we're going to go through. You get an overview of things. And all you have to do is start typing if you want to search for a program. And you have multiple workspaces, which I'll be demonstrating. If you have a computer with a pad, a mouse pad, you can move up and down and left and right and things will happen. I don't have either one, but that's one of the nice features of this desktop. I hit the meta key. We're going to open the GNOME Software Center, search for WSJTX, and unfortunately that other software that we were supposed to find isn't there. All we had was RPM, and we did not have the FlatHub repository. So unfortunately here I typed Flatpak. What I meant was FlatHub. The programs themselves are called Flatpaks, and the App Store is called FlatHub. And we didn't get it set up, so we're going to go out and look for it here. We did get the other repositories in, but we need to do a quick setup, and we need to set up the FlatHub store so that it also works with the GNOME Software Center. You can see I was fighting a little bit with the mouse, trying to get it where I could get it on top of quick setup. If you and we can use it with a lot of different distributions. Here we're choosing Fedora, but you could see a lot of other icons. What we need to do, and the only thing we need to do here, is to click that blue box there. It says there are other ways of getting it, but if it didn't work, just to install it with that, and that's all we had to do. And we click on OK, and it's a very fast install. It's just telling the App Store where to look. So you'll see it's going to happen so quickly you don't think it did anything. We type in our strong and complicated password here. I'm stealing that from other videos that I've heard. Okay, and again, I'm having a little trouble closing Firefox here, which, by the way, is the default browser. Hit the Meta key again, which is the Windows key. We open up the App Store, and this time when we type in WSJTX and we click on WSJTX, you'll see up there is the Flatpak and there's the RPM version. So now we have a choice of using Flatpaks or staying with the RPM repository, and that's what I would stay with. And that's what I did stay with in all of my installations on my main computer. And in the next segment, I'll be showing you all of those programs running on my main machine. So I hope you're enjoying the video so far, and if you want more details, I'll be happy to do more later on. I was looking here for the version, and it didn't give me a lot of information, but after I installed it, I took a look, and it was the very latest version, as I thought it would be. But for some reason in this Software Center, it didn't tell me which version it was. So with that, I'll stop it here. In the next segment, like I said, we'll be taking a look at all of my favorite programs running on Fedora. As with a lot of Linux distributions, there are security features to keep people from doing things they shouldn't do. One of them is groups, and you need to be in certain groups to be able to do certain things. And with ham radio, one of the groups that you need to be able to use is a group called Dial Out. And that gives you access to all the serial ports and everything. And it's not automatic in most distros. So I'm going to modify the user. I'm going to add, that's -A. -G is the group. And I'm going to modify the Dial Out group by adding Ken. And then I'm going to press Enter. And since I'm using the super user, I have to put in my password. And unfortunately, it didn't work because I can't type. There is no deal out group. There is only a dial out group. And there actually is a file in the computer system called called group. And it lists all the groups, and there's like 50 or 60 of them. And what I've done here is just modify it. And if you actually go into, and what I'm looking for is the root. If you go into the group, into the file etc, and if you go down, you will find a file called group. In this file called group, you will see all the different groups that you can belong to, and most of them you're automatically added to when you need to. You're added to the group called Wheel, but there is a group called Dial Out that we had to get added to in order to use WSJTX and other programs that access those serial ports. Well, now we're ready to go, and the next section, I promise, will be my main computer. Here we are on my main computer, one of the 3 virtual desktops, and one of the things that I failed to do when I first started this up was to turn on CQR logs remote. And so I have to go up here and I go down to remote into WSJTX. This setup's a little different in that it's not actually recording. It's not actually controlling the radio. FLRig is. So here I have made a contact, and I hope I made a contact. So we're going to send him another RR73, and we're kind of clunking along here. One of the things I didn't do was record sound here, so but when you are logging into CQR log, it makes a nice big loud bing, even if it's on a different screen. Here he sent me an 04 again, and I need to get to the RR73 here because I've already sent him a report, a signal report, and he sent me one back, and somehow I'm not running in the right spot here. So let's see if I'm going to get this. Yeah, wake up. There you go. Now I got RR73. So my next response will be RR73, and that will bring it up again and correctly. What I like to do is go back and enable TX transmit with RR73 in case, especially if I'm working at a station where they're not giving me a big strong signal. This guy's coming in like gangbusters, and I'm not quite as loud, but he says I'm +4, which is way loud. So there he gave me a 73, and I can go down, and when I hit to log, it went over here, and this window popped up. So part of the problem with all of these windows popping up is that this isn't a laptop. This is my main station. I actually have 2 monitors. And I'm trying to make it look like I'm running it on a laptop with virtual desktops. So I'm switching back and forth. And here's, so this window keeps popping up on the wrong desktop. So here's some pluses for Linux, Fedora Linux in your ham shack. You get the latest software. You can install most of the major ham radio software directly from their repository, and it is the newest. A negative, because it's the newest, every 6 months they come out with a new version of Fedora Linux, and you can't wait more than a year without having to upgrade. So you're in a constant upgrade situation. Second, because most of the software starts out being written in either Debian or Ubuntu, it sometimes takes a while for some of the less known ham radio software to get to the Fedora operating system. Someone has to recompile it to run on Fedora. So if you look up Linux in the Ham Shack, Bill Stearns NE4RD made a couple of videos where he was installing Fedora, and he discovered a couple of his favorite programs. One in particular didn't exist on Fedora, so for him it was a non-mover. He decided to move on to a different operating system. But if you're happy with having the software you saw here, you can get CQR log, you can get the FLDigi suite, you can get Grid Tracker. You have to go to the Grid Tracker website, download it, and double-click on it. Very easy to do. The simplest install there is, except for out of a software store, I suppose. So if those are the main ones you're wanting to use, they're there. You also have the latest of the other Linux software. Most of the major things are there. All of your editing software, sound software, anything you might want. But if you're into not changing your desktop very often, or not upgrading and letting things sit for a while, I don't think Fedora is for you. I'll be reviewing in the future. We'll be taking a look at other distros, including some Arch distros where you have a rolling release and you never have to upgrade your distro because it's always being upgraded. And we'll look at Ubuntu and Debian distros too to see if any of those might work out for you. And by the way, you can run a lot of these distros on your Raspberry Pi if you have one, including Fedora. And I will be putting out a video from time to time with these different distros running on a Raspberry Pi so you can get a look at them and see if any of those would be suitable. In the meantime, I hope that you liked this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please subscribe. If you have anything you'd like me to do in the future, please add it in the comments at the bottom. And I will put a link to Bill Stearns Linux in the Ham Shack, the videos that he has put out. He also did an install on Arch that you might want to look at. Anyway, in the meantime, stay well. This is W6BZY, the Digital Ham, bidding you a good day.